Welcome back to Man Across New Horizons. I'm dear darling, as you see what's going on our lovely island of Fawnhallow today, where we'll be vibing out as per usual. You know, what's going on with me today? You know, I've got my writing group with my friends. I don't know, I felt like my accent was a bit different there. But got my writing group with my friends or whatever later today. You might be like, what's your writing story like? It's weird, I guess. I'm not sure it's weird, but it's very different from what I usually do. Normally, I unsurprisingly, I tend to like these very sentimental, these very emotionally impacting, these, heavy topics a lot of the time. And, well, I guess one of the topics, actually, one of the prompting words was war, so, it's not like it's completely free of lightness, but we'll get into that in a second. Hello, everyone. We're now in Fawnhollow at 6:10pm on Monday, January 16, 2023. But this one is a lot more light-hearted, I suppose, than basically any other story I've written. Not completely light-hearted yet, I haven't written a completely light-hearted story, but I was basically looking at all the short stories I've written, and I was like, I haven't actually written, like, a funny one, or one which is just sort of, like, casually, like, cheerful, I suppose. Not cheerful. There are things with hope and sadness, with happiness in it, but it's always happiness like wrapped up in a sort of blanket of sadness, I suppose. And I suppose this one kind of is as well, but it's like much more leaning into the carefree side, I suppose. And, you always got to push your boundaries with anything you do. You got to try things which make you uncomfortable. You got to try things which, you don't have to. If you've tried it and you're like, I don't really like it, and you're completely fine with status quo, so be it. But I suppose to truly be able to challenge yourself, I suppose, the best that you can, to be the best that you can be, you do have to challenge yourself in scenarios that you aren't necessarily the most comfortable with. Makes sense, doesn't it? But yeah. Anyway, I'm going to talk about this because it's going to lead into, actually quite an interesting conversation topic, kind of. I'm not really sure, but it's going to lead into, so basically, the concept behind a lot of it, this short story I was writing was like, what if I just like threw a load of random nonsense words, like, and sort of just played them off as if they were completely normal things in this world? Because, and I thought about it, I was like, well, what's my inspiration for that? And, the Jabberwocky. And if you don't know what Jabberwocky is, it's a poem written by Lewis Carroll? Jabberwocky. Yeah, by Lewis Carroll, which is basically kind of like a nonsense poem. It's a poem that I shouldn't say I studied, because when you're in primary school, you don't really study poems per se. You sort of just read them and you talk sort of about overarching themes, but you don't really go that far into the depth of the analysis. But it was something which is introduced to me during primary school at some time, with Jabberwocky, and I genuinely really liked the poem. If you don't know what Jabberwocky is, you can go look it up yourself, you can go read it. It's where things like Vorpal sword comes from, and there's some like other things which derive from it, I'm sure. I can not really think of, like, maybe like Snicker Snack or something, and it doesn't really make sense, but it's basically a big old nonsense poem about a boy who's like, I can't remember exactly, but it's like told by his father to go on an adventure to slay this beast called the Jabberwocky, and it's basically his adventure, and that's basically the entire story. I'm not really spoiling anything. He slays the beast and then he comes home or whatever. But the thing is, the entire poem is filled up with just tons and tons of just nonsense words, like words which don't exist. And even now, probably very few of them actually exist in the first place, or like, but it's still a poem you can read, and you can still get like sense out the meaning of the words they're saying. Because the thing, and I'm not even sure if I remember this properly, but like, I'm pretty sure the first few lines are something like, "'Twas brillig and the slivy toads did gimble and gamble in the wade," or something like that. Which is obviously, it makes no sense. You'd be like, what is brillig? What's a slivy toad? What does gimbling and gambling mean? But still, like, just the way it's written and the way it's sort of like, I suppose, the meter in it in the first place, and your own expectations of what a story should be like. You could be like, okay, so it's probably like, 'twas like a nice day, and then like some random creature, which I always imagined as a frog, I don't know, did gimble and gamble, and it's like, I don't know, like played around in like the countryside or something like that, in the grass. You get like these sort of insinuations about the exact words being said. Like, you might not have pictured exactly like the things I said. You might not have pictured a grassland. You might not have pictured a forest. You might have pictured like a pond or something. But it's a sort of thing where I guess if anything is kind of like a, if you wanted to be very sort of snarky about it, well, I'm not sure snarky, but very sort of like pompous about your analysis, it could be like a sort of like an analysis into words, and like not a criticism per se, but like a sort of demonstration as like how much meaning is required in these words in the first place, how much of it is basically on your own interpretation of a story in the first place. Because if you read it as like a straightforward sort of poem, it has no meaning because it literally doesn't make sense, most of it. But it's a fact that you can still read it and you can still derive a story and meaning from it in the first place. It's probably, now I think about it, it's probably what has derived my attitude towards art of being like 50% of what the creator wrote and intended and 50% on your own interpretation of it. But if anything, this is sort of like the grand the utmost royalty, I suppose, of like your own interpretation of a poem in the first place. Now, by the way, my analysis of this might not be perfectly great, by the way, because it's also, you know, I first technically analysed it like when I was, I'm going to guess I was like 7 or something. Is that about right age? That might be about right age. It's somewhere around that vicinity. Yeah, so I forgot what I was going to say after this. It just was like, it's just a highly amusing, I suppose, poem, and you know, it really made me think about it the first time I read it, being like, wow, you know, I'm surprised you can get so much meaning out of nothing, I suppose. And then I was just like, well, I guess it's kind of me making the meaning up in the first place. And then I remember one exercise we had to do is basically write down what we thought the poem meant, like what we thought each word, not what each word meant necessarily, but what the entire meaning of the thing is. And I think there is like a generally like well agreed meaning, what agreed like intended meaning, I suppose, of a poem. But and I don't know, it kind of falls by the wayside because I'm just like, that kind of isn't the important part, I think, personally. You know, the important part is the fact that there is a meaning, is whatever meaning you derive is the one that you thought of yourself, I suppose, in the first place. And I'm not going to say that, you know, that Lewis Carroll basically did nothing and just wrote absolute nonsense and then for some reason got a popular poem. No, I'm not going to say that. You know, I'm sure there's genuine artistic merit in the poem that he wrote. Things which lead you to think one way or another about it, and that's, you know, how you can even derive meaning from the first place, because you can't write complete nonsense and expect meaning to be derived from it. You got to have, I suppose, some sort of structure. You got to play into what people's expectations and things are in the first place. But yeah, anyway, I don't know if it's my favourite poem in the world, but it's certainly one of the poems which has been introduced to me during schooling time and been like, you know, it's actually stuck with me, I suppose. There's a lot of things. We're actually running out of Nookmar points. I didn't realise. I suppose it's because I haven't really been farming them, so maybe today we'll try and actually do some of these farming things instead of going to say hi to Brewster. But yeah, it's always something which sort of stuck with me. The Jabberwocky, the Yellow Palm are 2 poems I can think of off the top of my head which genuinely stuck with me. Why for better or worse? Are they good or bad poems? I don't know. Art is subjective a lot of the time in the first place. So maybe objectively they're bad or like okay or mediocre or mid or whatever. But you know, subjectively to me, they're the ones which I remember. So you know that therein, I suppose, to make it more meta again, is the meaning it derives from me. Anyway, Jabberwocky, should I give it a read? I haven't read it for like years, so could be fun. Thank you, Poetry Foundation. Oh, I just tossed OBS off my screen. So here we go. Is 'twas brillig of a slivy toves did Guy ring Gimbal of a wabe. I was pretty close. Or mimsy with a borrow grows, or the mome's wrath outgrape. Oh, you know what I should do? I should try and guess the next line to see how much of it I remember. So hold on, let me just like, okay. Let me do something such that I can't see the next thing. Beware the Jabberwock, my son. It's like with the claws that something and the teeth that scratch something. The jaws that bite, the claws that catch. Beware the Jubjub bird and shun the frumiest Bandersnatch. Oh, Bandersnatch, you know? Black Mirror, anyone? Okay. I'm going to have to see the first line of each verse before I think. He took his purple swords in hand. No, I don't remember. Long time the manxome foe he sought. So he rested by the tum-tum tree, I remember tum-tum tree, and stood a while in thought. And as in uffish thought he stood. Oh, I can't remember it. No, the Jabberwock with eyes of flame came whiffling through the tulgey wood and burbled as it came. The only part I remember from now on is the vorpal blade will go snicker-snap or something and like lop off its head or something. And then he goes like bounding and something home. And then his father's like, oh, I'm really happy for you, son, or something. Obviously, I can't remember the exact words anymore. You know, it's very much how I remember things is the general meaning rather than the exact words, which I think most people do. Well, I don't know if most people do that. Maybe I shouldn't say that. Who knows? Anyway, 1, 2, 1, 2, and through the vorpal blade went snicker-snack. Still remember that line for whatever reason. He left it dead, and with its head, he went galumphing back. Galumphing, that was a word I was trying to think of. And has thou slain the Jabberwock? Come to my arms, my beamish boy. Oh, it's all coming back to me. Although to you, probably listening to this is probably someone very excitedly reading with Jabberwocky for no apparent reason. O frablius de Calukale, he chortled in his joy. 'Twas Brillig and the slivy toes, de Gyre and Gimble and the Wabe, or Mimsy with the Borogroves and the Mome Rafts outgrabe. 1983. Anyway, I don't know, the Jabberwocky just sort of stuck in my mind. Nonsense poem. Is it actually, there's a whole Wikipedia article on nonsense poetry. Unsurprisingly, Jabberwocky is quite, up there, I suppose. Oh, I remember this illustration of a Jabberwocky as well I saw when I was younger. It's wild. Oh wait, it's about Alice? What? I thought it was about a son or something. Oh no, it's about Alice reading a verse of the Jabberwocky and finds a nonsense verse as puzzling as odd. Okay, fair enough. Considered one of the greatest nonsense poems written in English, as playful, whimsical language has given English nonsense words and neologisms such as... I didn't know galumphing is actually a word, but chortle came from here, apparently. I mean, it's kind of the same thing, you know. Do all great authors do this? I don't think necessarily. I think, you know, certain great authors will never use made-up words, and certain authors will just use them, you know, whenever they want. You know, it wasn't like Shakespeare very well known for doing that, just inventing words out of nowhere for really no apparent reason. I don't know. I don't think it's necessarily a measure of your skill per se, but you know, or that alone, or I should say that alone should not be a measure of your skill. I don't know. It's just like it's something which stuck with me. Anyway, I definitely don't have the poetry prose of Lewis Carroll or any other sort of famous poet in the first place. I don't even write it as a poem or anything like that. I just sort of, you know, wrote it, just sometimes sticking in a nonsense word here and there, but a very obviously nonsense word. It's not like an alien lexicon, perhaps is what I tried to say. Like it looks like a word in an alien language rather than a word particularly that feels like a nonsense word in English, which feels like it should have a meaning, which doesn't. Maybe that's something I could do in the future, who knows. Anyway, Jabberwocky's a lot of fun. And if you've never heard of it, then, well, you know, you're one of today's lucky 10,000. And if you don't know what the lucky 10,000 is, then you can Google XKCD 10,000 and you'll probably find the comic. Possible interpretations of words. Let's see, hold on. Brillig. Brillig means 4 o'clock in the afternoon. That's when you begin broiling things for dinner. I actually do remember that, because I remember we got given like a handout worksheet. I'm not sure worksheets. Maybe just a handout is probably the better word. Of like analysis about potential popular meanings or interpretations, I suppose, of the words in Jabberwocky. And to me, Brillig, I always thought was like brilliant. For some reason, I guess because it starts with Brillig. Brilliant. I assume it was a portmanteau of brilliant and something, another word I'd like never heard of or something. So it was just sort of like, oh, you know, it was a really nice day. So, I don't know, that's how I always interpreted it. Isn't it great? But apparently this one, it's meant to be 4 o'clock in the afternoon. OED. Oxford English Dictionary, okay. So chortle is actually in dictionary. To gyre is to go round and round like a gyroscope. Makes sense. Galumphing. Gallop, triumphant. Okay, I guess that makes sense. I forgot we were meant to be doing Nookmar missions. Snowflakes, water, hit rocks. Okay, can do. Ooh, we can do. I haven't even seen Rick and Morty, so I don't know. No, that's not true. I've seen like one episode, but I don't remember which episode it is anymore, to be honest. I thought it was fine when I watched it, to be honest. You might be like, oh, did you think it was terrible? Did you critique it for all it's worth? No, it's just fine. That's all I can really say. Or catching snowflakes would be a really good one. Look at all the Nookmar missions we'll get for that. Okay, so keep an eye out for I don't even know if snowflakes are still about anymore in this little weather, but I guess we's about to find out. Oh yeah, there's a snowflake. Oh, like it's like for you right here. 4, 5. You might be like, have you bought a Joy-Con controller yet? The answer is no, by the way. I should do at some point, but alas, poor Yorick, I knew him well, Horatio. I haven't. I really like saying that. Every time I need to lead into, say the word alas and lead into something, it's always alas, poor Yorick, I knew him well, Horatio. I don't know when last time we customized our starnet is either, so maybe we should do that soon. Lest it break. Lest it break my heart. There's probably the reason why I haven't done these Nookmar missions for ages is the fact that it's very hard to do them while also talking about things at the same time. Burbled. Brillig. Mimsy. Mimsy is flimsy miserable. I guess that's probably why it feels like these words are actually words. Is they're actually just sort of like combinations of existing words, kind of. So they give the impression that you want. You know, say mimsy. You know, I did have that association with flimsy, but for some reason, in my mind, mimsy was a creature, like a very like weak and meek creature, like a little like delicate moth or something. That's how I always pictured it. I don't know. A jub bird. I relate jub bird as something that you see sometimes in. What's this drawing? Look at a jub bird on Wikipedia. That's a fantastic drawing. It's very bizarre. It's like a frog with hawk wings. Maybe not hawk wings, but certainly some sort of wings. I don't know where on earth we got that from, to be honest, but we definitely don't need all these snowflakes, I think. Jub bird joins the fight with Red Queen, only to have it later its head crushed by a giant boulder from a catapult. Excuse me? But poor Jub bird. Yeah, I don't know, nonsense poetry. What other nonsense poetry is out there? Strikes me something that Spike Milligan would do, but it seems like it's sort of like up his alley. Let's see. John Lennon's? Clanging. Doggerel. What are these words? Edward Lear. Yeah, Spike Milligan. Hold on. Spike Milligan poem. He's almost certainly done a nonsense poem. Oh, the Ning Nang Nong. How could I forget about that? Ning Nang Nong, where the cows go bung and all the monkeys say boo. I can't remember the rest of it. There's a Nong Nang Ning, where the trees go ping and the teetered pots jibber jabber jew. Or a Nong Ning Nang, or mice go clang, and if you can't catch them when they do, and you just can't catch them when they do. So it's a Ning Nang Nong, cows go bong, Nong Nang Ning, trees go ping, Nong Ning Nang, when mice go clang. What a noisy place to belong is a Ning Nang Nong. It's kind of more like a tongue twister, I suppose, if anything. Let's talk to our friends. I forgot about Ning Nang Nong. No, nonsense poetry, how fun. I don't know. Maybe it's a little bit snooty of me, but part of me sort of like a kind of delicate art, I suppose, to making something which doesn't make sense, but also is still enjoyable to listen to. And still, you know, something where you can derive some sort of meaning to it, right? Maybe? I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Anyway, I don't know. Anyone else got their own sort of it's not famous, favourite nonsense poem? I'm still going to be honest, it's still Jabberwocky for me. Jabberwocky's very much, you know, I think it's hard to take down with Jabberwocky. Spike Milligan's got a lot of them, though. What if I just search nonsense poem, see what comes up? Limericks, I guess? It's not really what I had in mind. I can't read that one. There's some PowerPoint presentation. To be said in one breath, hard to please. Okay, well, let's try and say this in one breath. Oh, it's on Pinterest. It's so tiny, I can't read it. Okay, never mind. Octopus? Who's this by? I don't know. Well, Ning Nang Nong I certainly remember. And I also remember Jabberwocky. Jabberwocky. I didn't realise it actually appeared in Alice in Wonderland. Wow, it's been translated. Should you try and find Chinese or Japanese? American Sign Language. It's not been translated in Chinese or Japanese. In Chinese, let's see. Slaying with Chinese Jabberwock. Ah, I can't bother to read this. It's so long. Oh well. That's probably a very interesting article about it, but I don't know. Nonsense poetry. There you go. Anyway, I'm going to round off this episode here, so if you have been watching, thank you very much. It's been Animal Crossing New Horizons. I've been Dear Darling. Likes, comments, subscription, shares are greatly appreciated. Join me Dear Darling Discord, follow me on Twitter down below. Hope to see each other again, but for now, it's our farewell. So until next time, bye bye for now.